right. Good morning and welcome to the live SitRep for the 12th of March 2022. So again, doing this one on Instagram and on YouTube, so you can play along wherever you wish to for today. So I'm back. I'm back home. Back from the floods. So for those who weren't following along with what I've been up to, I went up to the Northern Rivers to help out with the flood recovery effort up there this week, and then just decided to come home yesterday. So yesterday, sort of afternoon, drove back down probably about 11-hour straight drive, I think it is, something like that. It's the roads have opened up a bit now. So the highway on the way up, when I was going in, I had to actually push inland and kind of go through Casino and Lismore in order to get into that area, the Northern Rivers. But the highway had opened up now, so I could get down. It was a little bit quicker. Probably took another 2 hours off the journey. So instead of it being like a 12, 13-hour ordeal, it was only a 10 to 11-hour ordeal. So I drove through the night. I stopped a couple of times to sort of like rest my eyes for an hour or so. So I'm pretty tired, but I'm caffeinated. We'll see what comes out. Mainly today, what I wanted to talk about was some of the lessons learned, and I've just some of the things that I scrolled down when I was out there working around, helping out. Things that popped into my mind. One of the reasons I went up there, I went up there to obviously help out where I can, but I also wanted to see what they were experiencing and trying to get some of those lessons that we can take away from this tragic experience, and hopefully better prepare ourselves in the future. So that was one of the things that I wanted to do when I was up there. I didn't get much filming and that done when I was up there because I was kind of working the whole time, or catching up with people, seeing friends and that I know up there. But what I'll try and do is actually film a more solid YouTube video on these lessons. So I'll produce a video on lessons learned. I'll do a video on what I had in my grab bag too, because it worked its ass off when I was up there kicking around. And I think other people too, some of the things that other people were carrying, they really twigged stuff in my mind where I was like, that's a cool idea. Commie Hunter, hey, how you going? Gonna send you a YouTube link. Shoot, go for it. Where's my tan? Did I have a nice holiday? I had a great holiday. I probably look pale as a ghost at the moment because I haven't slept. I've driven through the night to get home, and now I've caffeinated myself and I can't sleep. No, I had a 2-hour nap when I got home. Yeah, but it was very hot and sunny up there when I got there. And that was a bit of a rude shock for me. I got up there and it was 30 degrees and 100% humidity. So I was sweating when I first got up there. All right, so in the news today, I'll touch on some of the things that are happening in the world. Obviously, the Ukraine thing is still happening. Keeping our eye on that, and the effects of that are starting to be felt by people, especially at the fuel pump. On the way back down, fuel, the peak that I saw was $2.40 for diesel, which is obviously a huge amount, and a big jump too. So it's quite stark that it was probably sitting around $1.90 on average. You can maybe get it down $1.85 or something like that, to all of a sudden go up to $2.20, and then in some places $2.40. It's quite a lot, and I certainly noticed it. One of the reasons I decided to sort of pack up was I was kind of running out of resources, running out of money when I was up there, and didn't really want to be a drag on the community up there that I was staying with. So jumped in the car and drove back down and was like, wow, that cost me a lot in fuel getting back down here. So that's what we're going to start seeing, and I think I don't actually think that's the peak that we're seeing at the moment. I think it'll probably go up from there a little bit too, or maybe a lot. Like to see my TikTok dance in solidarity with the Ukraine. sure. Of course, if you are in solidarity with the Ukraine, the absolute first thing you have to do is let everybody know that you are. Like that's the fundamental part. If people don't know that you're stand with Ukraine, then what's the point, right? So you really got to go double down on that virtue signaling right now, because that's what's going to help Ukraine the most. Those people, they're hurting, and if you're not TikTok dancing and putting little flags up in your bio, yeah, exactly, put your flag up in your bio, then Putin won't know. And we've got to tell him off. One of the leading stories that I saw actually on news.com.au was that they think, yep, McDonald's has done it by McDonald's closing down the Ukraine, in Russia, that they've dealt the blow to Russia. This is it. It's going to stop them. I'm just like, no, okay. If you think that's the thing that's going to stop them, good luck. Yeah. So, all right, I'll kick on. I'm just going to talk about some of the, or actually, I'll touch on some of the markets that are going on today. Where are we? Markets. So a lot of the Asian markets are down. A lot of the European markets at the moment are slightly up, and a lot of the American markets are down as well. Commodities in agriculture are still up and sort of holding up. And obviously energy prices are up. Fuel's gone up through the roof. Brent crude is currently at, where are we? Brent crude, $112 a barrel. So still up there, definitely still up there. Food prices are still up there. And that's one thing that I want to remind everyone, that the food prices, even though they are up, well, I must have been talking about something that I shouldn't have. They just tried to shut out the electricity. Even though the food prices are up now, with fuel prices up, think about how your fuel gets to, think about how your food gets to the store. It doesn't just magically appear. Your local fucking IGA isn't selling, like growing the stuff out the back and putting it in on the shelf. It's getting shipped there, utilizing fuel. So as fuel prices go up, food prices will follow as an effect of that. And on top of that, food prices are up already too. So that's the next thing to check out, or to watch out for, is food prices dramatically going up. So when fuel prices go up, food prices go up as well. Be warned. Lastly, metals, pretty much the same, which is high as well. So gold spot price is just a touch under $2,000 an ounce, and silver's holding over $25 an ounce. So yeah, all these indicators, and if you haven't heard it before, I always talk about this. Why do I talk about metals? Because I love them. Gold and silver are awesome, I reckon. But they're a good indicator of fear in the market. So as people get more fearful in the market, these prices go up, because we see money getting taken out of other things like the imaginary stuff, currencies, stocks, and things like that, and going into solid, tangible assets, i.e. gold and silver are the number one tangible asset class. So we see those rising. So we're seeing them up. I want to own gold bars. Who doesn't? Do you know how much they are? They ain't getting cheaper. Yeah, maybe start with coins or tiny nuggets would be my recommendation. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of fear in the market, obviously. That's shifting into that. So enough about the world. What I'm going to talk about now is my experience from up north with the floods, quickly. And why does that keep happening? That's so weird. The experience that I had up north, these are just a couple of the lessons learned. And as I said, I'm going to do a longer video on this, probably on YouTube, about that. So some things that were pretty important that we should start thinking about that happen in emergencies. Number one, communications. Communications was totally blocked off in some areas, in a lot of areas, in fact, throughout the northern rivers. There was just no telephone communications at all. So think about that now. If your number one and only form of communication is your telephone, then start considering some other stuff. UHF radios were a hot commodity when I was up there. I went up there with 6 or 8 maybe. I just threw them all in a box and was like, UHF radios, here we go. But yeah, even when I was out doing out on little missions and things like that, doing stuff, I was surprised that still, like, I was there day, what are we, 5, 6, 7 into this disaster. Yeah, I think I rocked up day 4 or 5. And yeah, people still didn't have UHF communications, and they're out in the boonies with me doing hectic stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, so communications, backup communications, a big one. Also took my Garmin InReach, which was not bad. It wasn't great, but it worked okay. So that's satellite communications. I can communicate via text message through satellite with that. And I can also obviously get GPS and things like that through it. So that was handy. I could track where I was. I could let people know where I was too and get messages out. The other thing that hit the ground when I was there was Starlink. So we were like taking Starlinks out to some of the more remote areas, and there are also helicoptering Starlinks in, which was cool. Which was another thing. I actually just ordered a Starlink after seeing what happened in the Ukraine. It's sort of like I'd been on the fence with it, and I thought, no, actually, I'm going to give it a try. And so just before I left to go up there, I ordered a Starlink. And then on the ground up there, I saw how they were actually working. And I was like, wow, I'm really glad that I ordered a Starlink. And when I got home this morning, it arrived. So, yay. I thought that was going to take months to get to me, and it took under a week to get to me. So I'm pretty stoked about that. So I'm going to shoot a video on that, set it up, see how it works, and see if it'll beat my 50 megabyte per second NBN that I have at home. I'm thinking it will, because it was outpacing that in like totally remote cutoff areas that I was in. So yeah, I'll do a review on that and see how that works, and give you my honest opinion on what I think about that. Yeah, so that's communication. So consider that. Consider what your backup communications are now, and how you can help fortify that, and how you're going to like build out that plan a little bit, because relying on your phone, like, it just didn't work. Then hand in hand with that, if the phone network goes down, guess what else goes down? Your ability to pay by FPOS. So nobody could pay by FPOS. Nobody could access money through ATMs or anything like that. All that communication network was down. So cash. So I rolled up there with cash. When I was up there, the communications in certain areas that where I was operating, like all the sort of major towns, was back up. So I could, buy coffee or, buy supplies or whatever in the town, or fuel mainly, via a card, but also had that cash as a backup. Fuel was another big thing as well. So making sure that you've got heaps of fuel on hand, because generators were a big one. So I spent one full day just out there going up a valley where it had all collapsed in. There was no roads. The roads were pretty much destroyed. And there was a major creek running through it. So I just went up there with a crew with chainsaws, cutting trees, cutting tracks, laying down temporary bridges, putting rope lines in. And then after we did that, then we hauled generators up, like 3,000 kilowatt generators up to people who are up the top of the valley, and fuel as well. So 20-liter jarrs of fuel. They are super needed in a situation like this. So if you don't own a generator, I would seriously consider getting one. They're not that expensive, these ones. They're like Ryobi ones, so they're not going to last forever, but not super expensive. Or you can go the electric version as well. So something like an EcoFlow. That's what I've invested in, and I rate it a lot lighter, a lot more portable. Obviously, you need solar panels or something to charge it in that situation, but it will charge 12 volts. So in your car, it'll also charge from the wall socket as well. But some sort of generator and fuel as well is something you want to consider. So for those who are just joining now and just seeing people pop in, what I'm talking about is some of the lessons that I learned in this past week when I was operating or helping out up in the floods, up in the northern rivers. Water's another big one. Making sure that you got clean, potable water. A lot of people didn't have any clean water. Illness was rife when I was up there. So you had a number of situations going up there. Just to give you kind of the lay of the ground there, Lismore was like utterly pretty much destroyed. In fact, I'm like 50-50 whether they're going to actually rebuild that town or whether they're going to say, fuck it, we're out and just leave and just pack everyone up and move down to like Casino or something. That's how bad it is there. But that's like a town. That's like thousands of people, like, town getting towards that sort of like maybe small city, very, very, very small city vibe. And then you've got remote communities of like individuals who live like weirdos off grid by themselves up the middle of a valley or on top of a mountain or something like that. So you've got that kind of spread of people, and you've got everything in between that as well operating in there. But across the board, more so in Lismore, more so where there was more people, but even in the more remote areas, you had illness. So you had that waterborne illness, and I said this to people and to friends that I was talking to up there before I left to go up there. Like, be warned that disease is the next thing that's going to happen. So look out for pests. Look out for other collapses, building collapses, toxicity of chemicals and stuff that have been put out there, and diseases that are going to come, especially waterborne diseases. So the old flood gut, or I can't remember what they were calling it, but barley belly type thing was happening. A lot of people were getting sick up there, and that's just from tainted water or from touching things and then eating food or something like that. So cleaning hands, the ability to clean hands, the ability to get clean drinking water is a huge thing in these situations. And some long life food. The food situation was actually relatively sorted there. A lot of people throwing in, like, there was a lot of resources thrown at this the problem up there, and still is. There's still issues going up there. There was just this definite shift in the energy up there where it was less we need to rescue people and more we need to clean up now. So they're moving from the emergency situation into recovery, where they're getting into that more cleanup sort of situation, the more assessment of what we're going to do more long term, from the sprint into the marathon. And me, I'm much more in that sprint area. So that's why when I saw this sort of starting to happen and the handover to the services, to the military, to the SES and the RFS and that, I thought, like, yeah, now's probably the time where I can step away and start thinking about coming back home. But yeah, a lot of resources being thrown at it now, and there was a lot of food around. Even to the point where the last couple of days, as a volunteer helping out, they were like pushing food on me, and I was like, "Oh, aren't there people who need this?" And they're like, "Yeah, the volunteers need this. This is where this food's going now." And quite good food, to be honest. A lot of cafes and stuff making up like meal packs and putting them out there. So that was great to see. Four-wheel drive vehicles. Like, I like utes. I just think they're very functional, and I like four-wheel drives. I think they're very useful in a number of different ways. But this reinforced it so much to me. The amount of people that rocked up to help, and they were like, "Cool, can you drive this, hay bales and fuel out to somewhere?" And they were like, "No, I don't have a car. I've got a Suzuki Swift or something." Sort of inappropriate car to do that sort of activity. But it just reinforced to me that I was like, oh, I've got a four-wheel drive capability. I've got a ute. That's definitely what I'm going to stick with in the future. So that's something to consider as well. It doesn't necessarily need to be a ute, but the advantage of that was, like, I could put tons of hay bales or something when I was taking feed out to people, out to remote locations, fuel, things like that, dirty refuse stuff, things that were toxic or unclean in that. And it's not in my car, it's in the ute tray, so I don't care. But yeah, they're definitely a boon. I can't stress enough how useful the ability to four-wheel drive is, and the ability to drive. That's another big one. So one of the people that I met who sort of live with my friends that I was staying with, like top person, acquaintance of mine now, but they were actually involved in a car crash. And I was surprised that that was the only car crash that I heard of, because I was watching the way people were driving. Obviously, a lot of tired people, a lot of people still in that fear mode. And I was surprised there wasn't more car crashes, because people were mental on the roads up there. So she got hit by someone on a precarious road, and it was just luck that when this person hit her, it spun her car into the hill and not off the cliff on the other side. So very lucky that that happened. But that was another thing that I was just like, people need to learn how to drive, and how to learn how to drive in precarious situations. So through mud, through water, through roads that are deteriorated and been washed out, all these things that, like, I was driving through this all day, every day. And I'm like, oh, this is hairy stuff, but like, it's nothing that I haven't done before. But for a lot of people, I think they were like, whoa, I haven't seen this before. So hitting that at 60 Ks an hour in your little, front wheel drive, whatever, petrol car, not a great idea. So knowing how to drive and having a capable car too, because even the normal roads there were torn up. Mental preparedness and resilience, it was a huge one too. So it really stood out to me, the people that were kind of on some way prepared for an emergency, the people who had lived through an emergency before or a natural disaster, the people who are used to maybe more arduous conditions, and then the people that weren't. And there's a huge juxtaposition there that was going on. There was people who were just like blinders up straight away, like, oh, it didn't hit me. Going back into tourist mode, or like, oh, I'm going shopping for some clothes or something like that. And then like I drive 20 minutes down the road and we're like digging people out, not digging people out, but, digging paths to get to people who hadn't seen anyone in a couple of days. So huge juxtaposition between the experience of reality that was going on there, and people not knowing how to deal with the long-term effects of being in a situation like this, and maybe prioritizing what was right and what's wrong. And I can talk more about that. That's a huge rabbit hole that I'm not really going to go down. But mentally preparing yourself is a huge thing for these things, and having resilience too. So building in some sort of resilient practice into your life, so that you know that you can deal with arduous conditions. Pets. So really, really considering pets. I think a lot of people, even people who maybe prepared for themselves, didn't prepare for their pets, and didn't think about that, and were maybe caught off guard. So, I mean, one of the main things that I'm always concerned about is animals. So yeah, like thinking about, if you are going to bug out, how are you going to bug out with your pets or other animals, livestock and things like that? There was a lot of animals that were swept away, destroyed, injured in this. And that's kind of due to like this not being part of the reality of thinking like, oh, if it floods, yeah, I'll get in the car and pack up the family and we'll head off. And it's like, oh, hang on, what about my livestock? What about my goats? What about my horses? What about my dogs? What about my cats? So consideration to that too, and prepping for them. Like, yeah, cool, I chucked them in the car and took them, but can I feed them? do I have the resources to actually sustain them for the time that I can sustain myself as well? Footwear and clothing was a big one. I might actually do a review on these, because they work their ass off. I bought a pair of a few months ago, Salomon Gore-Tex Quest boots, Salomon Quest. Yeah, and they tore it up out there. They were awesome. Fully Gore-Tex boots were the way to go. Good solid boots that were protecting me, that I could walk through mud, I could walk through horrible stuff. I could walk through water. It didn't matter. Kept me dry, and sometimes my feet did get wet, like the water got over the top of that. But even with a wet foot, they still worked great. Never got any blisters or rubbing or anything. Never really even thought about my feet when I was kicking around, which is really what you want when you're doing this. And I was watching people in like Dunlop volleys and thongs kicking around. That's flip flops for anyone who's not an Aussie, not not some sort of lingerie. Um, yeah, and how much they were struggling, and people cutting, like, all these stories of people cutting their feet open and having like septic cuts and things like that in their feet. And that's not a good way to be. Lastly is fitness too. So that was one thing that I really noticed, is just the general level of fitness, and that juxtaposition, the difference between people. Um, People who maybe don't put that much attention into their general health and fitness, or maybe into what they think is health, um, and not the ability to actually physically operate and do things. um, they like I wouldn't have considered myself super fit, but like just that ability to continue working all day, and then like I said, like, some days we were doing stuff, we were building stuff, cutting things, lifting logs, dragging them, tying things, moving, doing stuff, and then once you've done that, then 20 kilo Jerry on your back and walking 5K up through muddy conditions. Um, and then back down. So there was a bunch of people, and mainly the people that I saw were, I don't want to like categorize anyone, but tradies. The tradies up there were just working their fucking asses off, nonstop. Super capable people, super used to working, super used to just getting in and getting stuff done. That was generally the people who were doing it. There was other people who were doing stuff, definitely. And like the friends that I've got up there, super fit, super capable people. Some are from fitness backgrounds, some are tradies, some were like yoga teachers and all sorts of backgrounds, but they were up there. They were working day in, day out. But yeah, that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing for people to consider. I can't stress it enough. And it was just reinforced in my mind, where I'm like, mental preparedness and physical preparedness are my first two like stop points whenever I'm talking about prepping or disaster preparedness, or emergency situations. They're the first two things that I say to people. I'm like, don't worry about the equipment so much. Worry about where your mind's at. Worry about where your body's at first, and then get the Gucci gear. So that was just reinforced in my mind massively. Would I ever come up to Queensland? Yeah, sure, I'd go up to Queensland. Why not? I'll put more information about this, but I'm actually going to head back up to the Northern Rivers probably in a month or two and run at least 2 courses up there. Just talking to people up there, they're keen for it. They obviously see the need for it now, so I'll be running one up that way early May at this stage. But I'll probably do some sort of fanfare about that if and when I get it up and running. Just another couple of little things before I wrap up for today. I did see the RFS up there. A lot of people saying, "Oh, we're not seeing the Army, we're not seeing the RFS." I saw them around. I saw them around a lot. And as I was there more, the Army presence was more and more. I think it was just a very military thing. People couldn't see what they were doing. And I think they were a bit standoff, like, we need to figure out what we're doing, what the lie of the land is. And there was a process of the community taking charge. It was awesome to see. A lot of community-based stuff. In fact, everything that I did was just community-based. It was just people hooking in and organizing it themselves, which has pros and cons. There was like a real lack of overarching understanding and organization. But on the sort of micro level, people were just getting stuff done very quickly, very resiliently. But that process was starting to change over to the services. So I think in the next week or so, like, military will take over a lot more. RFS were up there. I didn't go up with the RFS. Anyone knows the story. I did ask to go up with the RFS. I couldn't go up with them. They said, no, you can't. So that's why I just went up by myself. Kind of glad I didn't go up, because all I saw them doing was hosing down sidewalks. Yeah. So that's the extent of what they seem to be doing from my perspective up there. There's probably other stuff they were doing and I just didn't see it, but I just saw them hosing down a lot of sidewalks. Grab bags too. Really, really big, important thing. I will do a video on what I was carrying in my grab bag. I'll pull it apart. so you can see what I had and how I packed it. It worked very well while I was up there. It was great. So yeah, I'll have a chat about that. And I talked to other people up there who had grab bags in the actual emergency. So on the night of the horrific floods, they had grab bags that they utilized to great effect. So I'll talk about that. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. Bit of a ramble today. As I said, I'm super tired. I don't know where my brain's at. I'm half caffeinated and half asleep. But yeah, I'll try and get some videos up soon. If you got any questions, as always, chuck them through to me either on the Instagram or on the YouTube, and I'll try and get them answered. But yeah, apart from that, that's it for today, for today's SitRep. So thanks for watching along. Really appreciate it. Keep prepping, guys. Things are starting to get really iffy. I don't like to be a doomsayer or anything, but all the elements are starting to pop up where I'm like, whoa, this is getting on that edge of the cliff now. So really start thinking about your preps. Don't freak out. Just continue on with them with what you can do. So don't flip out and feel like you need to go into massive amount of debt and buy all the things in the world. Just continue what you're doing. Get done what you can now, because I think things are going to increase in intensity over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, apart from that, Semper Paratus. Stay safe, guys.